Would it surprise you to learn, just imagine a very dramatic moment. Would it surprise you to learn of the 58,000 books published every year, half sell fewer than 12 copies? But people were, of course, live tweeting it or just reporting on what happened that day in summary. And so that statistic obviously got repeated, but there wasn't any evidence provided for it during that conversation. And so the kind of conversation between the attorney and the expert witness kind of moved on, and there wasn't any further delving into that. So I, in one of my most professionally embarrassing moments of my career, just put that into an article along with lots of other things that were said at the trial that week. And, I didn't give it a lot of critical thought because to me, as someone who is familiar with BookScan figures, and I just assumed from the start, this is pulling from BookScan data. I thought, well, God knows what's in that 58,000 number. It doesn't surprise me that you could come up with something that looked that disastrous. Yeah. When you press on that figure, it's very suspicious.
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Elly Blue, the vice president of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we welcome back Jane Friedman of The Bottom Line to answer a reader question, which was directed at Elly and I to explain Jane's reporting on how many copies books sell.
Penguin Random House wanting to acquire Simon & Schuster. So that happened, in 2021? So as part of the discovery of that case and all of the testimony and et cetera, a lot of information about book sales came out. Some of it was just stuff happening on the witness stand. Some of it was actually entered into evidence. So, of course, as someone who reports on the industry, I was avidly following what they were saying at this trial.
We built this software from scratch to solve our own problems starting in 2001.
It's not only the reason for our survival, but the reason we've been a Publishers Weekly fastest growing publisher 3 years in a row.
Now we want to share it with you.
Join Working Lit and get back the agency to understand your publishing business, market and sell your books, and painlessly pay royalties.
Working Lit. Doing the math for publishers.
Visit workinglit.com to give it a try for free.
What I really liked about this situation is that BookScan, someone who does the analysis, they actually came out at the time and said, okay, I don't know where they got that number, but if I were to reverse engineer that number, here is how I would do it. And what she did is she took the top 10, I think it was the top 10 selling publishers in the United States, and found out, okay, how many titles can we attribute to them? And it was in that same ballpark, it was in that 40 to 50,000 title ballpark. She said, okay, if I look at their sales, it actually is the case that a good number of them have sold fewer than 12 copies. And
wow.
the exact percentage was 14.7% sold under 12 copies, 51% sold between 12 and 999 copies, 21% sold between 1,000 and 4,999 copies, and so on. So if you look at the sentiment here, the way I summarize it is 95% of books sell fewer than a couple thousand copies. And it doesn't matter if it's coming out from a big publisher or not. Even the big publishers are not hitting it out of the park with most of their books. And that was a takeaway from the trial in general for anyone who followed it. So if you go into the nitty-gritty of that article I wrote, which is free at my site, you can kind of read the full explication of that. But I think the problem is that when people were discussing it, like myself, we just put that statistic out there without really the background of why it looks so bad. And there are still people who actually take issue with the BookScan numbers themselves. They will say, well, this is just print sales. That is true. It doesn't account for libraries, foreign sales, ebook sales, audiobook sales. So it's missing a huge portion of how books are sold. But I think
Specialty gift.
yeah, specialty. Right. So you can absolutely argue with these figures and say it is not an accurate representation. For authors who are concerned about what is my big five publisher going to do for me, or how many copies is Barnes & Noble going to move, then you probably want to pay attention to those numbers.
Yeah.
Just because Big Five is very focused on, the sorts of things that BookScan tracks.
Right. Yeah.
That was completely helpful, and I have no follow-up.
You have no follow-up question. Well, so I guess this is the thing. Like, I've had a lot of fun being like, okay, the vast majority of our catalog is in the top, I don't know, 10% of books. That's really a fantastic statistic to throw around. And I love being able to tell authors they're in the top 1% or 0.5% of books sold. Also a great benefit of this job. But I don't know. So, like, what do you think of, I mean, other than living in like the misinformation era of Trump or whatever, like where people just repeat things that aren't true. What are your major takeaways from that anecdata?
Being in the industry for this long and having exposure to these numbers for so long, I am consistently surprised that people don't understand that books are not generally a way to get rich. Like they sell less than you think.
Yeah.
But no one talks about it. So as soon as you get one of these statistics out there that look shocking, people are like losing their minds over it.
Yeah.
And so this was a misleading statistic, and I certainly wasn't attempting to generate any clickbait from it. All of this was also behind a paywall. It was someone like screenshotted it and posted it, and that's how it went viral.
Wow.
So like I wasn't trying to I'm trying to like shore up my defenses here. I wasn't trying to make hay out of this misleading statistic, but I do like how it reduces people's expectations.
Yeah. There's that.
Our industry is run by billionaires and conglomerates.
At Microcosm, we wanted the freedom to independently sell our books, easily pay royalties, manage our inventory, and understand our business all in one place.
That's why we've been using our own software since 2001.
Now, we want to share it with you.
Working Lit is the only business success software that is created and owned 100% by publishers for publishers.
Join Working Lit and get the agency you need to help your business grow.
Visit workinglit.com to try it for free.
How there's so many different like sort of micro publishing industries,
Yeah.
Like when you talk about the publishing industry, it's actually a little unclear what you mean. Like a lot of academic books probably don't sell more than 12 copies, and they're not designed to. They're designed to be like, prove that somebody wrote their PhD thesis, or maybe be a reference for one person. And then like self-published books, also hard to tell. But then like I guess how would you like think, like if you were to like try to say something definitive about the publishing industry, how books sell, what are your chances of a book selling? Like what pool would you draw from? Like what do you think is actually a helpful frame of analysis?
Well, I love how you said that the publishing industry is a vague term because it's like a dozen or more different industries. And I don't think most people understand that. I do like that when BookScan tried to provide clarity, they narrowed it down to the top 10 publishers. So they were just saying, let's look at the commercial market. Let's look at the sort of books that are on the New York Times list or in your average bookstore. But, for a publisher like Microcosm, I find you to be I'm not saying you're not commercial, but you're in a different sort of market, like maybe an enthusiast market, or a community-driven market. You're doing mostly nonfiction, which I find is often easier to sell if you understand who it is that you're serving. And I used to work for an enthusiast publisher. And we used to sell books in much higher quantities, like in that top 1%, because we had book clubs and direct-to-consumer sales and all sorts of things that BookScan doesn't track. So I would say, for the audience that I reach, though, it's mainly aspirants who are dreaming of that commercial deal or they want an agent. And so then I think it's more helpful to look at what BookScan analysts have to say. But if you're
Right.
working as an academic, or if you're working in a certain aspect of the children's market or the education market, it's just a very different picture.
I feel like it would be helpful, honestly, to have, I mean, I guess BookScan does provide a valuable service for the commercial market. And it would be so helpful and so interesting to see that for others, in part because it tells you like what your chances are, right? You know, and it tells you the stakes of like doing a good job with your development and listening to your publisher and getting along with your editor and all of that.
Yeah. I really wish that there was better data coming out of the industry. I mean, this has long been a weakness, that the data is all siloed. You know, Amazon certainly could tell us a lot about sales across different sectors, but it's not going to. The Association of American Publishers, you know, they do segment the industry usefully into like, you know, religious publishers and scholarly or professional publishers and then trade publishers. And they offer some nice big picture stats, but they're not releasing what I think would be really valuable data for authors. You would just have to be on the inside to obtain that. And of course, they still like the one valuable thing about the Association of American Publishers is that at least when you're looking at their figures, they do segment it by these buckets. And they're also, it's all formats in. So it's all of the digital formats along with print and any other special stuff that might be going on, like large print or something.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
On Twitter at Microcosm,
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
on Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.